Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Helen Marley, as you know, and today in the video number 7, I'm going to talk to you about how to teach a student to play a beautiful two-note slur. I believe that the two-note slur is the mother of all artistry. One can tell how well a student has been taught immediately when you watch a student play a two-note slur, and as well as when you listen to the sound that they create. So this particular two-note slur begins by having the student use the drip, drop, roll motion that I taught you in a prior video. So we want our students to inhale on the drip and then exhale on the drop. So when they play the second note, they play the note at the exact same time as they roll their wrist and their forearm forward into the wood of the piano. This looks so simple, but it's actually quite challenging for many students, whether they're young, transfer students, or adult students, because the wrist has to be flexible and the arm and the entire playing apparatus must play fluidly. And the student always must remember which sound is louder. And of course, it's the first sound compared to that lovely, leggero, light, quiet sound on the second note. Okay, so there is a piece in 1A of the Lesson and Technique book of Succeeding at the Piano that teaches a two-note slur. And the piece is called Fluffy Bunny Rabbits. And the rhythm goes like this: half note followed by a quarter note and then a quarter note rest. The rest gives students time to move either up or down the keyboard. So this is how it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the words are fluffy bunny rabbits. Then the left hand comes in with watch them eating carrots. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I should stick on the B's. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Right, so we can ask our students, how did that physical gesture feel? And they'll explain to you, yeah, I dropped into the key and then I rolled forward. And what was the sound like? Oh, the first note was louder than the second note. Okay, so a good way to help our students learn this is to just have them use maybe fingers 2 and 3 in the right hand, because those are the easiest to play a two-note slur with in the beginning. And just have them drop to the bottom of the keys, or bottom of the fall board. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. It's so important to guide our students' arms so that we can feel that they are released here and that we guide them to move forward and off the keys. When they're comfortable with that, go ahead and have them actually produce a two-note slur. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Always making it rhythmic. So you can have your students do this on third and second fingers, maybe 4 to 3. They could do 2 to 3, 3 to 4. They could even do 1 to 2. Or 2 to 1. So there are all kinds of combinations that you can have your students do on the fall board. Then you can have them do it on their arm. They can do it on your arm. You could have yourself do it on their arm. They can do it on their thighs, right? And you could do it on their thighs as well, so that they get that feeling around their shoulders, so they get that feeling of the dropping and then the release. Okay, so now let's take a look at page 21 that's in his book. It's called White Swan at Sunset. And you know, I think there are 7 kinds of students when it comes to two-note slurs. The first kind of student is the one that really has it. It's really beautiful. They are completely artistic at the keyboard when they're listening to their 2- and 3-note slurs. Then there are other kinds of students. Okay, so the second kind of student is the hitter. And the hitter is somebody who thinks they're playing a two-note slur, but they're locking their wrist, which means the second note is also hit. So that doesn't really sound elegant, and it certainly doesn't sound attractive. So those are the hitters. So what do we do with those students? Have them drop more comfortably into and down to the bottom of the key bed and feel that there are fluffy pillows or marshmallows at the bottom of the key bed. Right? Have them imagine that they are really playing dead. Dead. Oh. Now I have come to life. All right, then the third kind of student is the scooper. The scooper is the one that scoops way too low, right? Way too low. And they're never going to have a good sound for the second note because it will be strident. Okay, then we have the thumper. And the thumpers are the ones that are just thumping around the keyboard, and they kind of move their wrist willy-nilly, right? And that's why we don't want to say play with loose wrists or bounce your wrists, because the motion is really all about dropping and rolling. All right, so here's White Swan at Sunset. You're going to hear me play 3 two-note slurs in the right hand and then even a two-note slur in the left hand. I'm going to use a tissue box touch release for the very last note. Oh, so beautiful. Okay, so now let's take a look at The Charms of London. This is a wonderful piece by Hummel. You know he lived during the classical era. So in this piece, you're going to hear some wonderfully symmetrical and balanced phrases. And every phrase is 4 bars long, just like all the other classical tunes that we know. So this Charms of London piece was arranged by Timothy Brown. It's in grade 2A of Succeeding at the Piano. And this is a good time for students to use either the prep or the Festival Collection Book 1 for their other repertoire. So here you're going to hear me play, oh my goodness, some very elegant two-note slurs. And I think I play 5 of them in this piece. Number 2. Here's the contrasting middle section. And here's a third one. And then back to the A section. Isn't that beautiful? And at the end of this piece, that friendly icon of the drip, drop, roll boy is there for our students to remember, oh yes, I can use that lovely drip, drop, roll motion on every one of these two-note slurs. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at Festival Collection Book 1. This is the Petit Rondo by Jean-Nicolas Geoffroy. And he was a Baroque composer. And you'll notice in this particular piece, the two-note slurs are in the right hand. And now we've talked about the hitter, we've talked about the scooper, we've talked about the thumper. So the 5th kind of student is really the slowpoke. And he's the one, or she's the one, who just, it's almost like they forget that they're playing a two-note slur until the very end. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to raise my wrist. I'm supposed to roll it off. Right? So we want to get that motion to be more comfortable, so that it's just like brushing their teeth in the morning. Right? It's so simple, they don't really have to think about it. They just do it. Okay, so here we go. Again, have your students play a piece so that it's slow, so they can really think about what their physical gestures are, and don't hesitate to guide their arm and their wrist. If they really are too tight, then go ahead and you play it for them and have them put their hand on your wrist so they can feel and also hear the loud going to soft. They can also put their fingers underneath your wrist. I love to do that. So they understand that when they release, there is no tension underneath the wrist. Okay, so now we're going to turn to another page in this book. It's a piece called Allegro, which means happy, and this is by Alexander Reinagle. I love to tell students about Reinagle because he was an Englishman and he came from England to America way back in the early days, and he was one of the first piano teachers to come to America with four-hand duet music. And also, he was well known for teaching George Washington's adopted daughter, whose name was Nellie. And students can learn all about this and other classical tidbits in succeeding at the piano. So here, this Allegro is much easier than the piece I just played because all of the two-note slurs are in the right hand and the left hand really just goes along with half notes. So let's have the students drop and roll with the left hand as well so they get used to that really nice motion. Our sixth kind of student is one who's a real stick in the mud. And this particular person always makes the two notes of the two-note slur the same. And why is this? If you look at my wrist, it's because it's locked, right? It's locked and it's low. So we ask our students, how about if you sing those two-note slurs, right? Da-dum. And we can have them conduct, da-dum. Even if they do a simple conducting like this, da-dum, they'll get the idea of releasing on that second note and that it's lighter and more full of air. Okay, so we'll have our students sing the two-note slurs. They can certainly conduct the two-note slurs. And another really good way is to actually videotape your students and send it along with them so that they can see what their body is doing with those two-note slurs. So then there's the seventh kind of student, and these are the denters. And I cannot play with a dent, and probably you can't either because you've been playing the piano for a long time. But our younger students or some transfer students play with this first knuckle joint going the other way. So that is what I call a dent. So obviously when a student plays with a dent, they're not going to get any good sound, and they're also not going to be able to really shape a phrase. So for the denter, you know what we could do? Let's go ahead and choose one of these two-note slurs. This one actually goes from your third finger to your fifth finger. Well, why don't we have them press their third finger into their nose? And they'll notice, oh, they're playing on the pad of their fingers, and it's a nice, strong feeling. But it's also kind of cushiony for your nose, right? So they want to feel like that key has a little bit of a cushion in it because they drop to the bottom of the key. So that's a really good way as well. You can have them go ahead and put their finger for that first note of the two-note slur on their forehead, on their thigh, and that's another good way for them to really feel it kinesthetically. Okay, so I'm going to show you another video really soon about more two-note slurs, and I'm going to talk to you about different kinds of two-note slurs, and we'll talk about how some of them are different from others, and always capitalize on the sound as well as the physical gesture. And we can always use imagery as well, right? So our students understand what kind of image they want to hear when they're playing a piece, right? So when we go to a piece such as this wonderful Arabian dance by Timothy Brown, oh, we can have them think about, how about some sand, and there's blowing sand, and maybe we're in Saudi Arabia and there's a tent out in the sand, and the tent openings are just kind of wafting in the wind, right? So they could think about that as the heavy sand, but then when it blows away, it's the release of the two-note slur. then it goes back to the beginning. So mysterious, isn't it? Did I tell you that was by Timothy Brown? I have to let you know that. All right, everyone. See you next time. Happy teaching.